Good evening, members of council, staff, ladies and gentlemen, presenters. Thank you very much for joining us today at this regular meeting of the Town of Pelham Council for Monday, September 17th, 2012. We will begin our meeting with an invocation followed by the singing of the national anthem. The invocation will be led by Councillor Durley, the national anthem led by Councillor Papp. All rise.
Dear God, who has given us grace to make our common goals unto thee, and who does promise that when two or more are gathered unto thy name, you will grant their requests. Lord, we supplicate your blessings upon this assembly. Fulfill now, O Lord, the petitions of thy servants as they may be expected of them. Grant us all in his chambers the knowledge of trust, justice, and honor in all considerations placed before them. Provide us in this chamber, O Lord, strong minds and discerning spirits as we deliberate over the business of our town, that we move forever forward to ensure the town of Pelham continues to be a vibrant, caring, and creative community. May God bless all in this chamber and grant us in this chamber the wisdom, will, and generosity to guide the town of Pelham through the challenges and successes that lie ahead. Amen.
Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patron of, in all thy Son's command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, councillors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. The next is the adoption of the agenda. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor King, that the agenda for the September 17th, 2012 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any additions to the agenda? I would ask council that we add an item. There was a report by Dr. Smith regarding the NHS, and I just want to give you a brief report on that. I asked that we would add that, and I would look for a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor King, and that would go under my report under 13. Thank you. Going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Any other additions? There being none, I call the amended motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried as amended. The next item is a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do any members have any pecuniary interest they need to disclose regarding any of the agenda items on this meeting? Councillor Papp?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, under 6.2 delegations, item B, the presentation of the Welland Rotary Club by Mr. Douglas Johnson. I'm a member of that club, and I will abstain and remove myself from the chamber during that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Others? Can that be noted in the minutes, please? The next item is presentations and delegations. We have a few delegations this evening. The first is by Peter Nicholson from the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Nicholson.
Mayor Augustine, members of council, city staff, and members of the public, my name is Peter Nicholson, board member for the Alzheimer's Society Niagara Foundation. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about our 17th annual coffee break campaign. This concept was the inspiration of Niagara's Alzheimer's chapter and has evolved into a nationwide annual fundraiser for societies across Canada where millions of dollars have been raised. National Coffee Break Day is Thursday, September 20th, with more than 10,000 coffee breaks expected to take place across the country. Locally, our campaign will kick off on that day and will run until December of this year. An Alzheimer's Coffee Break is a time to invite your coworkers, clients, friends, family, or neighbors to come together to enjoy a cup of coffee or another preferred beverage or food at a break time or another specific get-together in exchange for a donation. Coffee break events are held in homes, workplaces, community centers, schools, churches, city halls, retail outlets, just about anywhere. Some of the most successful events in the past have involved doing something a little different, whether it's an open house, a barbecue, a raffle, dress-down days, selling coffee cup decals, or rounding up at the cash register. Each break truly makes a difference to the lives of those affected by this devastating illness. Hosting a coffee break is fun, social, and quite easy to organize. The society supplies a kit, the host supplies the people. Each kit includes the first pot of coffee, a donation box, and promotional signs and literature. While many of the Alzheimer coffee breaks in Canada will be held on the National Day, you can certainly choose a date that is more convenient to you, since our local campaign runs from September until December of this year. Keith Abbott, franchisee of the Bulk Barn location at the Fairview Mall in St. Catharines, is this year's honorary chair. Keith will kick off the campaign on September 20th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with coffee and cake. All participating Bulk Barn stores in the Niagara region will be asking customers for a donation at the registers in exchange for a coffee cup decal that will be prominently displayed in each store location. We would appreciate everyone's support of this initiative. It must be emphasized that Alzheimer's disease and related dementias are not a normal part of aging. It is a chronic disease which slowly destroys memory and reasoning and erodes independence and eventually takes life. Currently, there is no known cure or effective means by which to delay its onset or its progression. It has been described as a disease of many losses, robbing a person of their mind and taking them away from their loved ones. It is estimated that 1 in 10 Canadians over the age of 65 are suffering from Alzheimer's disease or a related dementia. Here in Niagara, we have a unique challenge. We have one of the highest percentages of seniors per capita in Canada, and yet we lack the available geriatric resources compared to other communities. Currently, there are over 8,200 people in Niagara who are experiencing a progressive dementia. These numbers are on the rise. Within a generation, dementia may affect more than 1 million people across the country. This means that someone in Canada will develop dementia every 2 minutes, an alarming increase from every 5 minutes currently. While most people consider dementia to be a disease that affects only the elderly, we have learned that currently about 71,000 Canadians living with dementia are under the age of 65. We also know that as people are diagnosed earlier, they are in a unique and strong position to have their voices heard and obtain the support and resources that they need to continue living meaningful lives. This year, the World Health Organization has declared dementia to be a public health priority on a worldwide scale. The burden of dementia can no longer be overlooked. People with dementia are prone to cycles of emergency department use, hospitalization, and deterioration. Acute care hospital bed gridlock will continue until dementia is recognized as a central part of the alternate level of care crisis, and effective strategies focusing on dementia and are put into practice by our government bodies. A recognized leader in the field of dementia care, the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region is committed to working in partnership with people who have dementia, their caregivers, and with the broader community. Our goal is to enhance safety and independence within the home and community, strengthen resilience and coping capacity, and ensure that people living with the dementia continue to participate in family and in community life. A range of programs and services are available along the continuum of care that respond to the need for individualized and home-based support, education, socialization, and resources in the community. Each year, the Society must fundraise for approximately $600,000 of a $1.8 million budget. Coffee Break is our signature event. Thanks to this council and over 300 hosts, we raised over $71,000 last year. This year, more than ever, we need to count on your support to reach our goal of $100,000. Whether you host a coffee break in your home or in your workplace or as part of a social club or social group activity, you will be a champion for individuals and families in Niagara and your neighbors who need your support. I encourage each and every one of you to consider hosting your own event and make your coffee count. All the funds raised stay right here in the region. Anyone can register for a coffee break kit by simply calling the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region at 905-687-3914, or by visiting the website at www.alzheimerniagara.ca. Again, thank you for your time this evening and for your consideration of this worthwhile endeavor. Mayor Augustine, may I present to you your coffee break host kit?
I'll come around. Thank you very much, Peter. Appreciate your presentation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. We look forward to hosting it. I think the date that we're planning, we've done it in the past, as you articulated, and the date that we're planning is September 28th. Wonderful. Forward, and I think it'll be in this chamber, so.
That's great.
Thank you very much for your
Thanks again for having
dedication
us.
and for being on the board.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much again for the presentation. As I stated, we have every intention of hosting a coffee break again here this year. I think the tentative date that we have will be on September 28th. And so it'll likely be in this chamber. We'll send out additional details. And again, thank you very much, Mr. Nicholson, for your presentation and for serving on the board of the Alzheimer's Society, a very worthy cause. I do have a motion, and it's moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Papp, that the information received from the Alzheimer's Society Niagara Foundation regarding the 2012 National Coffee Break be received. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you again. The next item is a presentation by Carl Bray, who's certainly familiar to us here. Mr. Bray, please join us regarding the Draft Heritage Master Plan. You've been working quite extensively on this over the last number of months. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Very esteemed members of council, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me here tonight, and thank you for this marvelous project. I'm here to present the final report of the Heritage Master Plan. What I'd like to do is just very briefly give an introduction in this presentation, show you what a master plan contains, talk a little bit about what we found, and end with our recommendations and encouragement to move forward on this. So, this was a master plan prepared by a consulting team that my firm led, and it included a wide variety of different consultants covering a variety of economic and historical aspects. We were particularly pleased to have the planning partnership with us. The planning partnership is a planning firm that's been working with the municipality for many years, and we wanted to make sure that this plan allied very much with the draft official plan and with other planning work that we're doing, particularly the new secondary plan. So that was a very deliberate move on our part, and we're very, very, very pleased that we were able to have them with us. So what is a heritage master plan? It deals with heritage, which is really what are the important aspects of the past that are worth working with, worth keeping and celebrating. But it's also an economic development plan. And although it's not specifically looking at all of the economic development aspects of heritage, it allies heritage with community and economic development. So it's not strictly an inventory, it's not strictly talking about a historical analysis. It takes that and puts it into contemporary form. And it also ties it to what kind of legislative tools that you're able to use in working with elements of the past. And it's very much an exercise that's led by local people, because in some ways it's biographical. You're trying to explain in local people's own minds what they value and why, and then what that means for the future. So a Heritage Master Plan isn't just a shopping list of good things from the past. And it doesn't just cover buildings. It covers these other aspects as well. Things that you can touch and see, but also things that you can't. So traditions, oral histories, that sort of thing is also included. And this isn't just us making this up. This is now part of your provincial legislation. In the provincial policy statement, these are the categories that are considered to be cultural heritage resources that municipalities must take into account in their planning. One of the things that we put in a Heritage Master Plan is something called a thematic history, which is really a short biography of how you as a community have developed and what's important from that. What are the key themes? What are the things that you want to carry forward into the future as ways in which you live here? But it also ties in a management component. What are you doing now? How can that be improved with ideas from outside? What kind of planning tools can you put in place that will help this? And then what are the marketing, tourism, and economic development strategies that would come out of it? And then obviously pulling all of that together into a series of recommendations that form an action plan. Unlike other municipalities, you're not necessarily under the gun for massive suburban expansion, and that's a good thing. So the growth plan for the Greater Toronto Area, the Greenbelt Plan, as well as other provincial planning legislation, have pretty much capped urban growth beyond what you see now within the urban growth boundaries around your major communities. So that takes some of the heat off and allows you to think of, well, what do we do with the rest? What do we do with the smaller communities? What do we do with the rural land? And so much of what the exercise that we've gone through has done is identified, well, what's valuable with what's left over with that rural land? It's not just blank. It has value. And so what is of value is one of the things we've helped define. And then what sets Pelham apart from the rest of the Niagara region? What's special and unique about it? And then how to put the traction behind those ideas. And it's important that it's locally based, not my ideas coming from the outside or some whizzo idea that worked really well in Haltom and Norfolk but might not really work here. This has to be a locally developed plan, and that's, we hope, what it is. So what's different about Pelham? Well, one of the things that's different about Pelham is it's rather subtle. It's rather low-key. It doesn't have a marine land. It doesn't have a Niagara on the Lake and a Shaw Festival. It doesn't have miles of beaches. But it's got a lot of things that other regions have lost. A very distinct rural character. Lovely roads that don't have curbs and gutters, that the trees grow over, that you have to slow down for squirrels. You know, that kind of thing, which you kind of can take for granted if you live here. But if you come from somewhere else, this is blessed relief. And then there are quirky things, like the way the grid kind of goes offset every stop sign. You know, just odd stuff like that, which is unusual. And so little subtle things like that add up, particularly when you come at them with fresh eyes. And then what can you do with those? I think there are untapped potential, and there are ways of capitalizing on them. So this is speed history. People were here ever since the glaciers, so 10,000 years of occupation. The Europeans arrived firstly really with the United Empire Loyalists, but also with the Quakers, with African Americans coming up via the Underground Railroad. Luckily, in many ways, nothing major happened here in the big conflicts. People passed through shooting at each other, perhaps, or supplying those who were shooting each other, but nothing actually happened here. So you might not be able to trumpet much in the commemorations of the War of 1812, but you were spared a lot of the grief that resulted from those conflicts. Agriculture was really it from the beginning, and what developed in terms of buildings and hamlets happened at intersections and along those roads. You were connected to the outside world fairly early and in an innovative way with streetcars, amongst other things. So you were kind of ahead of the game at that stage. And then, like the rest of the world, particularly after the Second World War, roads allowed people to move here but work somewhere else, retire here. It changed the way agriculture happened, and really that kind of brings us up to the present. So where do we go from here? Well, these following maps, north is to your right, so you have to kind of look at Pelham the normal way with your head cocked over to the side. The purpose of this particular diagram is to look at the green. The green is the best agricultural soil you can have. And look how much of it you've got. So that is gold. And as I tell my planning students, although you might not believe it, but agriculture has a very bright future. And I'm not just saying that as a University of Guelph grad. All of the pundits that I'm reading, the economic development experts, they're saying we've all got to eat, and with the petrochemicals going up and up and up in price, we've got to figure out other ways of growing food. And if you've got this kind of soil, you have really got to work with it. It's just absolute gold. And you've got other things to work with too. Pre-contact means Aboriginal, before the Europeans arrived. They kind of passed through. The best areas, needless to say, were along the coast. But wherever there was a water course, or perhaps an area with particularly good wildlife or nut gathering potential, berry gathering potential, you'll see some concentrations. These are known archaeological sites. Obviously, there could be many others, but you can see some of the concentrations in the boggier areas and along water courses. And then this is just a compendium of everything that happened once the Europeans arrived. Some of these sites still exist, some of them don't, but you can see that development pattern was very much along where the roads were and clustering at crossroads where some of the hamlets developed. But it is very scattered. It's not a big blob that you would find in downtown Welland or certainly in downtown Toronto. Sure, you've got some significant heritage buildings. They may not win architectural awards, but they're important. They're good indications of what was popular at the time, and many of them are still in very good shape, even if perhaps they've changed uses. For example, the school is now a residence. But you've also got things like landscapes and places. You're all familiar, of course, with the wonderful view. You've also got some very good cemeteries, and you've got money now for cemetery tours. The other thing about the cemeteries that I notice as an outsider is that they're beautifully maintained. Unlike, say, the ones that I was familiar with at Lundy's Lane and Niagara Falls, which got vandalized regularly. People care for their cemeteries here, and I'm delighted to see it. Views and vistas, of course. Archaeological sites, mostly where former communities existed. But the other thing that we found is that, like any community, any large municipality such as yours, it's not one size fits all. There are sub-communities or sub-districts, and we've identified what we find to be maybe 5 of them. And I think these would be all familiar to you. They're all slightly different. They all have their own particular character, and this is something we've emphasized and started to work with in the master plan. But on top of that, there are things that are part of your everyday life. You may not particularly think they're important, but they are part of who you are. I was lucky a year ago on the 24th of September to come to these parts and be part of the 100th anniversary of the furniture store in Fenwick, and so I got to ooh and ah over the 57 Thunderbird and get my ear bent by the sales staff and all of that. And of course, I was able to visit your farmers market and hear tales of woe from the local farm producers. But by the same token, they had some very good ideas on how farm production could be improved, and those ideas have found their way into the master plan. But these are some of the other things that you do, and they include things like fish fries. They include the ongoing influence of groups like the Quakers. Special events, you have current ones like Music in the Park, but you also had big ones like the former Fenwick Fair. These are all important parts of your history as well as part of your ongoing everyday life. They make up a strong sense of place, which, as I say, is biographical, but it's also something you can work with, and here are the ways you can work with it. So as a council, when you're asked, well, what do we do with this heritage stuff? We've got to deal with it. Provincial policy statement says we have to. Why? Well, they tell you you have to, and here are some of the reasons why they're telling you that. Really, in the years to come, we've got to work with much more with what's still standing. The greenest buildings are those that are still up, because otherwise you have to put them in landfill. The embodied energy in a brick, particularly with the amount of petrochemical that goes into heating up the kiln, all of that is becoming an added cost that increasingly is something that we may not be able to afford. So the smarter we become at reusing what we've got, the better off we're all going to be. And then, of course, anything that's unique can be marketed. The fastest growing economic element in most Western economies now is tourism. Cultural tourism is the value add component of that, and the key aspect of cultural tourism is authentic places, places that are different from where you come from. So the more you can emphasize what's unique about where you are, the better you're going to be positioned to access that particular aspect of economic growth. And of course, the more you fix up your house, the prouder you are of it. So today you've got these things happening. You've got an official plan. We were able to contribute some policies to your draft official plan. You've already got some very good inventory. You've got a good Heritage Advisory Committee. I'm very pleased by the situation you're in. You've got a committed planning staff. So you're well suited. And then rolling into the final recommendations, these are the big ticket items. nothing amazing, but just these are things that are essentially enhancements of what you're already doing. So find out what you've got and evaluate it using standard templates, things that volunteers can easily use and that are cross-referenced to other municipalities and to provincial and national inventory systems, which means then you're in front of the line if there are any federal or provincial monies for any kind of conservation work. Your management capacity, it's really helping existing staff and volunteers do their jobs better and develop partnerships to help you with that. Heritage policies, already mentioned, make sure your official plan's teed up and that's well underway. And then you get people interested in their own stories, in their own sense of place, and that starts the ball rolling on community and economic development. So the four major project areas: building community support by getting people involved in their own place, and it's past, it's present, and therefore it's future. Working with the schools, working with the different component groups. Providing product, really emphasizing the unique aspects, so cycling tours, events, things related to agriculture, and you want to monitor that, make sure that you're on the right track, and that you're tied in rather to regional and provincial initiatives along that line, and then you want to market it. And see yourself really as the hub of a region. People will come here for respite, they'll come here for something different than they can get around the rim, and that's your market advantage. And then just doing your homework, creating a framework so that you make sure that you've got designation in place where you need it, so you've got the policy backup. You show by example as a council, so anything that you own as a municipality that's of heritage value, you do it right, you fix it up, and you enhance it and show it off. You make sure that your cultural plan that you're now undertaking integrates with what we're doing here in the Heritage Master Plan, so the two aren't going off in separate directions. And you want to make sure that the ability of town staff, council, and your volunteers is up to speed. And mostly that's what the plan lays out. And then finally, you want to make sure that you're not operating in isolation, that organizations like OMAFRA, like some of the regional attractions like Marshville, and that some of the other agencies like Tourism Niagara, that you're working with them, and obviously with the region. So those are kind of the key things that you want to do. So what the Heritage Master Plan attempts to do is pull together a bunch of things that you're already doing, put them in a framework where you can move forward. And at the end of the master plan, as you can see, it's an action plan. So it's broken down into steps with who the partnerships would be, what the priority would be, and what the timeline would be. And so you can cherry pick. It's not all or nothing. We've laid it out specifically so that you can move forward on a variety of different initiatives when and if you're able to. And so that's it. And of course, you'd be disappointed if I did a heritage inventory of Pelham and didn't show the comfort maple. So there it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Members of council may have some questions and comments. I certainly want to thank you for your work, Mr. Bray. Appreciate that, and certainly I see as well in the audience some members of the Heritage Committee. I know they've been working diligently, and we've received updates through Councillor Durley on the work of the committee, and also those residents that have participated in this. This isn't just something that you kind of did on your own. Obviously, lots of involvement from residents in our community. So I wonder if members of council have any comments or questions at this time? Questions? John, did you want to say anything?
Actually, I
Councillor Durley?
was with the committee that Carl led through this, and very pleased with the leadership that he did. He probably knows a lot more about the history of our town in the short time he's been here than most of us, and his dedication to putting a terrific plan together is much appreciated. Carl, great job.
Well, thank you very much. And I got to meet people like Dorothy Rungling and interview her. It was and Mary Lamb's work, and obviously Craig and Tara were wonderful as project managers, and the support of your council is very much appreciated. So
Thank you. Thank you. We have a
Did you have a
question
question,
from
Councillor?
Councillor Kersey. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, thank you, Mr. Brave, to you and your team, and to the Heritage Committee for the fine work. And I don't want to take away from the excitement of receiving this fine plan, but I do have a question regarding one particular point. Sure. And that is with reference to the receipt of a consent
Yes.
to create a new building lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the implications of that with respect to having to carry out an archaeological study.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice in the map that there's a significant when I look at the pre-contact potential,
Yes.
there's very little in the town that isn't involved in pre-contact potential. Now, does that imply that with reference to this map, that anyone who gets a consent from our Committee of Adjustment will then have to undertake an archaeological study, at least a phase 1 or 2, to have their consent completed?
The way we laid it out was that, first of all, we wanted to make sure that you were tied into the latest provincial legislation, which is becoming increasingly more active on understanding and dealing with archaeological resources. The direct answer to your question, I'm not sure that you would. In most municipalities I work with, we're trying to avoid individual property owners having to go through an archaeological assessment when they want to put extend their patio or put a deck in. To be frank, there's no easy answer to that right now. What I've recommended, Archaeological Services, as you saw, were one of our sub-consultants. What they tend to recommend, in the absence of an archaeological master plan for the whole community, one thing you can do is do a blanket stage 1 for a whole district. So if you were doing a secondary plan area, you would commission a stage 1 archaeological assessment for the whole thing. And so that would include every property owner in the future having to go through the same rigmarole. Because if a stage 1 is it's not going to vary that much property to property. So what I can do, I can take that question back to Archaeological Services, because I honestly don't know at your stage of legislation whether that would be required, and I certainly hope it wouldn't be. Okay.
I think that'd be most helpful, because it will
Yeah,
also.
I can see it would be an issue.
Yeah.
Certainly, if I were a property owner, I'd kind of go, ah,
Yeah,
help.
exactly.
Archaeologists aren't cheap.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Very much. Other questions for Mr. Bray? Thank you very much for your presentation. I do have a motion, and it's moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the final draft Heritage Master Plan, as presented by Carl Bray, consultant, be received and referred to the regular meeting of Council, scheduled for October 1st, 2012, for consideration. Any debate on that matter? Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you again for your
Thank you.
presentation and for your work and the committee's work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation. Take a minute here to switch between computers. Next presentation is by Angela Carter Enterprises, regarding strategic plan priorities report. Thank you for joining us.
Minute here. Mayor Dave, council, staff, and guests, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today to present all of the work that council and staff did a couple of weeks ago at the strategic planning session held on August the 29th. One of probably the greatest successes, or the greatest piece of the day, was the successes, and looking back on the last year when we first created this strategic plan, and the number of successes that were actually articulated by the entire team was very exciting, and it just shows that this strategic plan was in fact a living, breathing document that was embraced by the management team, embraced by council, and has really been brought to fruition, the vision, and making sure that we continue to move towards that. What we did this year is we took the strategic plan that exists today and set some priorities to each of the thematic areas, as well as the strategies within them. So what I'm going to present today is a snapshot of that, which will include some of the priorities for each of those, as well as some of the successes. It's quite a lengthy document, so I won't go through it all in depth, but I'll just kind of run through a few key things. So we had 6 areas that we focused on: an open, welcoming, and inviting community, a connected community, balanced growth, an engaged and integrated community, a self-sustaining community, and environmental responsibility. So what we did here is we looked at each of the key outcomes. So when we developed the strategic plan, we really looked at outcomes and what we wanted to achieve through that. And so each one of these headings has a number of outcomes to them, and then within the outcomes are some strategies that we wanted to achieve. So as you can see, what we've done is taken some dates and put them to finalizing this. So an open, welcoming, and inviting community, we look to achieve all of the outcomes that we set out a year ago by the end of December 2013. And those include having resources to welcome new residents, having exceptional customer service, having a process to engage the community, and stronger capacity stronger corporate branding. So these are sort of the detailed sheets that I won't go through in depth, but essentially what we've provided is a list of the strategies that we initially set a year ago, along with some of the successes that were achieved, and then the dates for each particular strategy and when the team of council and staff felt that those could realistically be accomplished. I'll just go through, there's a number of them. The second one, a connected community. Anywhere from June 2013 to 2015 and beyond, looking at an enhanced walkable community, stronger technology implementation, planning for facilities and structure, enhanced transportation, and integration with neighboring communities. So it's interesting hearing about the Heritage Plan, how you see the connection between the strategic plan and the Heritage Plan, and all of these things were taken into consideration as we went through this planning process. I wish I had time to go through all the successes, but this will be available publicly. But there were just, it was just really exciting to see what's happened in the last year. Balanced growth, we'll be looking at achieving some successes as early as December this year with protecting resources and encouraging diversity, planning and accommodating for growth, which is more of a long-term end date, staying true to our vision, and balanced growth in the official plan. An engaged and integrated community, most of that happening in 2013. So we'd have opportunities for the community to interact. We'd be welcoming new ideas within the community more than what we are now, encouraging and celebrating volunteerism, and enhancing community events. So as we went through some of these outcomes, it's not that they didn't exist today, but there were opportunities to elevate and to see some growth in some of these areas. Self-sustaining community. As exciting as October 2012, we'll have maintaining the service levels while ensuring affordability. That plan will be complete, ensuring best practices are used as a basis for decisions, aligning short-term needs with long-term goals, new partnership opportunities, and then visioning for the town facilities and infrastructures. Environmental responsibility, the final one, is again having an environmental plan, which is more of a long-term goal going out beyond 2015, new green energy opportunities, reducing consumables, a greener community, and then engaging the entire community. So you may notice some of the new recycling containers that are now in the town, and you would have seen a lot of environmental initiatives at Summerfest. And that's it. I believe that's the last one. Yes, it is. So that was the report that captures the successes as well as the strategies. And the second report that we put together was basically the original plan that we had done a year ago. We just narrowed it down a little bit, and we created a prioritized strategic plan for 2012 to 2022. And in that, we just capture the town's vision, mission, the principles and values, and then it's one big document that highlights all of the outcomes, the strategies with the timeline. So it's an easy document for the public to go and take a look at. And then I believe there's a commitment from council and staff to put together some reports into the future of what those successes look like, what we're accomplishing, and report that to the community as they move through the process.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Carter. I wonder if members of council have any questions for you at this time. I certainly appreciate your involvement at the strategic planning process, and again, as we prioritized it, and it was an all-day meeting and very, very successful. Any questions or comments for Ms. Carter at this time? I'm going to, I want to turn to Mr. Ottaway, and perhaps you can comment on how staff will use this documents and some of the compendium documents that are also available that Ms. Carter put together.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the priorities that have been outlined and to be considered by council form the basis of the work that the administration is undertaking. We now have not only a strategic plan, but we have a prioritized strategic plan that gives us the guidelines to proceed. And as council is aware, the proposed changes to the procedure bylaw, at the committee of the whole meetings, there will be a general departmental report from staff which will be directly correlated against the strategic plan, so that council will be informed, up to date, and staff will be held accountable to the benchmarks laid out in the strategic plan, which I think is a very effective tool for moving the organization forward, giving us the ability and the understanding of what direction council wants to go, and allowing the staff to administer the plan and to implement the direction from council. So it's extremely positive, and I'm very excited that we've got this direction and that we'll be able to work with council as the administrative arm to advance the strategic plan for the entire community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ottaway, for outlining that, and certainly thank you again, Ms. Carter, for your assistance on this and working together with members of the senior management team and council to put this together to help us through that prioritization process. In some instances, council had high expectations on what could be achieved, and they had to be ratcheted back a little by staff, but in other situations, council thought, wow, that can't be done, and staff indicated, well, we're already halfway done that. So it was a surprise in that way as well. It's a very, very excellent process, I think, to go through. I know it was very beneficial for me, and you see the results here this evening, and there's other documents, as Mr. Ottaway indicated, that staff will be using and will be using. There's some language here about PNP, and I think that's Priorities and Planning Committee. So there's some issues that council will have to deal with and grapple with. And I guess it doesn't mean that this is easy. It just means that we now have the plan, and we have to follow through on the plan that we've put forward. Councillor Durley, you signaled that you wanted to make some comments. Or
Thank you,
ask some
Mr.
questions.
Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
It's very important, I think, to note the parallels between all of the documents that we are dealing with now. The official plan, which is has some content that followed through from the Heritage Master Plan, and the question was asked when the Heritage Committee was meeting earlier, are we able to maintain the rural factor? And certainly our mission statement says in the strategic plan very emphatically, we're serving and enhancing our unique blend of urban and rural lifestyle. All of this shows that we got our ducks in a row, and that we're following in the right place, and one document supports the other, and that certainly gives us strength in moving forward. Congratulations to everybody who's had a part of this, and it gives us a great deal of ability now to steer the boat and let administration and staff do the rowing, and we're all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other members? Councillor Papp?
Well, firstly, let me thank Angela. You've been involved with us for a number of years and helped articulate, if I can use the term, as was mentioned to Mr. Bray, being footballized for the last couple of days. We now have a game plan that is prioritized, that gives us very clearly what we need to show to ourselves, and more importantly to our public, our taxpayers, along with the staff, of what we wish to reach these particular goals. And I think picking up with Councillor Durley and Mr. Mayor, is that we focus on our ability to govern the direction of this, let the staff, with their experience and knowledge, fulfill those, with also the context that we talked about, that we're subject to the evaluation. Obviously, that comes every time people vote for us, but at the same token, during the course of our term, that we be also cognizant and be acceptable that a criticism, if we need to change these things, and I think, Angela, you made that very clear, if we need to tweak it, change it, the game plan, then we should also be in a position to come back and say these things aren't achievable, or they're not reachable, or that they are, in fact, some things we can do even quicker. So I really appreciated that opportunity, and I thank my colleagues and the staff, and particularly yourself, guiding through that process, because we need to now get it down. It's onto the playing field now. The time is to march forward and definitely achieve those things that we talk about, that which we have actually done, but also look forward to getting things done that we've been kind of maybe not too, how could say, a little unreliable, or we weren't sure. And we'll see tonight a couple of things that have come to fruition. The Heritage Master Plan is one. We have the official plan that I'm hoping, and there's a report later on council about the approval dates and that. That's major stuff for our people to know what we're doing. So not only the language, but they see and they get it and why we're here. So thank you for leading us through this process.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Others? Just one other comment to take off of what Councillor Papp indicated about involvement of members of the public. Of course, that's one of the strategic goals of this council, is to be open, welcoming, inviting, and a connected community as well. And that engagement process, we've committed to have that engagement process as part of our process in decision-making. So this is a very open and transparent process to move us forward, and that's part of the strategy in which we're adopting and embracing to help move the community forward to our mission and our vision. So with those comments, I do have a motion, and it has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor King, that the strategic plan priorities report presented by Angela Carter Enterprises be received and adopted. Any other comments or questions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. That motion is carried. Thank you again for your assistance.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is a delegation, and it's being led by Eleanor McMahon, from Share the Road President,
A minute to look at that, what am I
Why,
speaking?
don't you? Fire away.
and also B. Clark. Thank you for joining us, B, and other members of the Active Transportation Committee are here. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to present this information to you this evening for your consideration. As you know, the Pelham Active Transportation Committee continues to promote the benefits of walking and cycling in Pelham. We are working towards a more active, a healthier, and a safer community. Tonight, we're here seeking your approval to pursue the bicycle-friendly community designation in 2013. As you know, cycling is increasing in popularity for health, economic, and environmental reasons. And we've heard a little bit about cycling through Pelham when we heard the Heritage report this evening. Many of you, I'm sure, see the cyclists visiting our community on a daily basis. Pelham's home to many cyclists of all ages, and of course, it's a favorite destination for many cyclists around the region and around the province. Pursuing this designation will allow us to assess and affirm what we already have in place and to plan for future improvements and initiatives. It will highlight safety and awareness for all of those who share the roads. Preparing the assessment will require staff time, and it will also require Active Transportation Committee volunteer time, and we're prepared to commit to that. There are 18 communities in Ontario that have achieved either silver or bronze designation, including Hamilton, Burlington, and most recently, Welland. Tonight we have Eleanor McMahon, who's the president and founder of the Share the Road Canada Foundation, here with us to give you more information about the designation, what it entails, and what it will mean for Pelham as a community. Eleanor?
Thank you.
I think we're just waiting for her presentation. I do want to celebrate the members of the Active Transportation Committee, many of them here, so that includes yourself, B, as chair, Bob Fish, Lisa Gallant, Joe Merchant, Don Nelson, David Swan, Catherine King, Councillor, and Regional Councillor Brian Beatty. So thank you very much. You have been very active committee, and but also encouraging us to be active. And it was very interesting, actually, driving in today. I saw more people walking than I've ever seen before, just on the streets and sidewalks. And so I think the message is getting out there, and we're all getting more and more active.
Yes, we're certainly seeing that. Thank you.
I think we're having a...
My presentation? All right, yeah.
Well, you can take a brief technical recess.
Craig, do you have a stick?
Craig, you send her too many emails, I think.
Anybody have a Heather? Heather Carter.
And yourself, Dave.
Oh, Andrew, sorry. Heather Carter's the HR person
Washington.
Got it. Oh, there we go.
I had a great time. Great.
Good job.
Susie?
I don't know what it is. Nothing.
I could talk to a tree, but I'm much better with slides. Keeps me disciplined. Thank you. Sorry about that. Oh, not at all. Thank you. There we are. Thank you very much. to the clerk for that. Appreciate it very much.
Is that on?
Lovely to be here in Pelham. My name is Eleanor McMahon, and I'm the CEO of the Share the Road Cycling Coalition. And I want to thank the mayor, your worship, and members of council for inviting me, some of whom I've had the pleasure of meeting at AMO and elsewhere. And of course, since I navigate the province, sometimes on my bicycle, but far too often on my car, I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you. I was recently in Welland Council, as you know, where I presented them the same proposition that they apply to be a bicycle-friendly community. They accepted, and now they were designated. So we're very proud to once again be in Niagara. And of course, I'm going to take a cheap plug to talk to you about the Niagara Bike Summit on October the 5th, which I hope you will all be thinking of attending in Welland. And it's going to be a regional conversation, and we're working with the Region of Niagara Bicycle Committee to bring that to you. And we've got some terrific speakers from the United States and from across Ontario to really share their strategies and their examples of how they've taken their regions and their cities and conquered some of the challenges and embraced some of the opportunities that are inherent in becoming bicycle friendly. I'm going to hopefully, there we are. A little word about our organization very, very quickly. Our Share the Road website is sharetheroad.ca, so all of this is available to you online. But this is a little bit about what our organization does. We work at the municipal level and at the provincial government level to make our province more bicycle friendly with the goal of enhancing access, improving safety, and providing a greater amount of education, if you will, to our citizens. Who we are, well, we have today stakeholders across Ontario who are our partners and our members and work with us to support our work. And they encompass a wide variety of disciplines, of course, not just cycling, but people in communities who are engaged in the cycling conversation. People like you in political leadership, but also advocates, public health officials, law enforcement, business and tourism. And you will see representatives from all of those folks at the summit in Niagara next month. These are some of our partners in a more dramatic way to give you a sense of their logos, of course. You'll see in there the bike industry. Our friends at CAA, I'll talk about them later on. We will work with developers such as Mattamy and so on, of course, the provincial government and others to really have the conversation that we need to have to really get at some of the challenges and, again, embrace those opportunities. I heard a discussion about your strategic plan. Like any good organization, we have one too. It's important to be disciplined. As a vice president at United Way, I learned that as a charitable organization or a non-for-profit organization, which we are, it's particularly important to be disciplined because when you don't have that many resources, you really have to be clear and concise and strategic about what you do. So what do we do? Well, writ large, advocacy, of course, that will be plain and simple to all of you. Really outlining that provincial role. Happy to tell you that our main contact in government is Minister Shirelli, and we're expecting a document that we've been working on for 3 years now, an updated Ontario bicycle policy. Happy to say it's the first one in, wait for it, 20 years. The last time there was a bicycle policy in Ontario, a guy named Bob Ray led the province, and he's changed parties. So it sort of shows you how the dynamic has shifted. And the mayor talked earlier about growing numbers of people embracing active transportation. And what I see in my work as I pretty much travel Europe and North America in this file is that communities are increasingly like yours, looking to the benefits of cycling. They have citizens who want to cycle more, and whether it's issues of safety or education and awareness, cyclists, motorists, they really are keen to sort of take hold of this and leverage some of the dramatic benefits that we're seeing and that I know that you can realize. So when you have an organization, again, that's non-for-profit, important to be focused. Other things we do, increasingly cycling, as I mentioned earlier, means a variety of stakeholders, and building that movement across the province is something we're very much engaged in. Everybody in government wants to have a good partner, and it's important that those who are articulating the message be competent and professional and friendly, and that's what we're working to do with cycling communities across this province to do that. Of interest to you probably would be that we launched an ad campaign this summer with the CAA. I hope you saw it. We're also in the most recent magazine for those of you that are members. We've forged a very strong partnership with the CAA, not just because they have 5 million members, although that's helpful, and not just because that they really are focused on advocating for better and safer roads, which is a natural fit. but also because increasingly as a business opportunity, they've embraced cycling. Of their 5 million members, they did a survey, 60% of them said they cycle on a regular basis. So that represents a significant business opportunity to CAA, and keeping our roads safer for everybody is something that they are working very much in doing, and of course we're a big partner to them in that regard. We launched with MTO a province-wide campaign to raise the awareness of Share the Road, and you might have seen that this summer on television. Everyone likes photos. I'm fond of this one, I guess, probably because it's our first political reception at Queen's Park. You'll know many of the people in this photograph, and we will be having our bike summit in Toronto again. Our permanent home for our Ontario Bike Summit is Toronto because the legislature, of course, is there, and it gives us an opportunity to meet with MPPs and really put them together with their constituents and talk about cycling and have that conversation, because, of course, increasingly cycling is being embraced by our province, and to wit, the first bike policy update in 20 years. So I think our province is beginning to realize that they need to play a more effective role, as other governments in Canada have done. Focusing in on our Bicycle-Friendly Communities initiative now. This is a program that we brought to Canada in 2010. It's an initiative that was first started by the League of American Bicyclists, which is an organization in Washington of over 300,000 members in the United States. They have 300 members of the Bicycle Caucus in Congress. They're a very powerful and very strong organization. We model ourselves after them. Would that we had that many members, but we're small. But nonetheless, we are aligning ourselves with the League. And I saw the Bike Friendly program as a mechanism to really change the conversation. So what does it do? Here's a picture of the town of the Blue Mountains. I was there this past weekend, actually, where they had 3,500 cyclists in to do the Centurion event, which is a race or a ride, if you will, of 3 distances, 25 miles, 50 miles, and 100 miles. That's the century piece. They're not metric yet, I guess. But 3,500 cyclists participated in that event over the weekend. I met with the mayor and members of council on Friday to talk about some Share the World work that we're doing there. A couple of their communities are bicycle friendly, incidentally, town of Blue Mountains being one of them. They were so designated last year. And that event brings in millions of tourism dollars to their region every year. They're now placing cycling right up there with skiing in terms of the economic impact that it has on their region. So they have embraced it because people want to ride their bikes there, just like people want to ride their bikes here, and people are. And I know that in pursuing this designation, it says to me that you're interested in getting more people on their bikes because you want to realize those same benefits. So that's a nice, lovely picture of the town of the Blue Mountains. Here's your friend Barry Sharp, of course, receiving his designation with Minister Shirelli. Welland received the bronze designation. There is one beneath that, of course, it's honorable mention, which we like to give to communities who are just starting and aren't quite there yet. And of course, this all motivates them to continue to do better, and that's what the award program is about. In fact, it's called an award program, but it's much more than that, because you get back from us and a panel of experts, smart people, not me. I just talk about this with great determination. But there are planners and engineers on our committee who work in professional firms, who work in those disciplines, who look at your application, who judge it, who give you feedback, who tell you what you're doing well and what you need to be doing better. And I think that's the value, amongst other things, to this program, because that's what you get back. Should I get rid of that box, perhaps? I'll just hit the X. How's that? And we'll keep on rolling. Of course we will. Ah! Uh-oh. Madam Clerk, I just got rid of my presentation. That wasn't my intent. I do apologize. Yes, there we are. Lovely. We recovered. We're fine. Please do. Thank you so very much. We don't want to get rid of Barry. Don't tell him I disappeared the slide when he was up there, by the way. Here we are with Oakville, of course, and Minister Shirelli. This was at our Ontario Bike Summit in Toronto. Perhaps we'll see you there. Your Worship, next year, a picture of London. How do we sort of judge you, and how is the application construed? Well, it's a benchmarking exercise. Everybody has to fill out the same and give us data on what they're doing in each of these 5 areas. It's a lengthy application. It's serious. It has some gravitas associated with it because it's important that we be thorough. If I wasn't thorough, then I'd be easy to dismiss, and that's not what we're looking for. I was saying to somebody the other day that it's a bit like Communities in Bloom, except that it's free. And it doesn't cost you a thing. It does cost you staff time, certainly. But what it does is capture what you're doing now, give you some feedback and some benchmarking on how you're doing, and tells you, with feedback from local citizens, by the way, how you should be doing and what you should be doing. Of course, bicycle-friendly communities have many attributes associated with them. This is a picture from Ottawa, of course, and their segregated bike lanes and their green treatments of their intersections. Anyone who's been to Ottawa knows what a bicycle-friendly city they are, and then, of course, that's what you're looking for. Waterloo, another good example, of course. They have a complete streets policy in the region of Waterloo, which has been really dynamic and helped them to move forward with some of their official plans and so on. But it's a commitment, and that's what bicycle-friendly communities have, is a commitment to active transportation. They have targets and measures, they set out plans, they actually have citizen input, they get real about them, and they make sure that they get actualized. Of course, breadth of programs in the 5 Es are what you're looking for. This is Oshawa. A lot of people were surprised by Oshawa's designation. I'm from the other motor city, Windsor, and you think that it's solely focused on motoring. Absolutely not. Here they are on the waterfront trail. An important economic impact for them is tourism, and they're eager to leverage more of that in Oshawa. And of course, people riding bikes, and that's a picture of my hometown, the city of Windsor. Of course, across from them, Detroit. Very quick anecdote about Detroit. This past weekend, it was the Tour de Trois, which of course is a French word for straight, and 5,000 people got on their bicycles and went through the city of Detroit. They blocked off streets, they looked at historical landmarks, they talked about community beautification and community cohesion, and that's 5,000 people at $40 each. They raised close to $250,000 for beautification and trail building in Detroit. So how does it work? Very quickly, I'm coming to the end. We like to talk about the review, and I mentioned the expertise that goes into it. You also get feedback from local cyclists and advocates like your committee here that are here in the room this evening. Again, we like to talk about it as a roadmap for the future, and that's what we'll be giving you. And so what can you do to be a bicycle-friendly community? Well, first, we're hoping that you're going to apply. And again, it's not just about the award. It's the opportunity to kick off a positive conversation in your community about what cycling can do, and really positions you as, and markets you as a community where people want to live, and because it says that you welcome cycling and you value it, and you value citizens who do, and you want to keep them safe. You also value economic development because people in a global universe can work just about anywhere, and they can live just about anywhere, most of them, and increasingly, and they want to live in bikeable and walkable and communities that sort of appreciate and embrace that. So I think it will move you a huge step forward. Mayor Dave Cheslevich, who's speaking in the Bike Summit next month, the former mayor of Madison, told me that he used his designation to attract business to Madison because it said that Madison cared about folks, about their families, about ways to get around other than by car, and it was something that he used to bring businesses to Madison. So these are a few things that I'd like you to do. Of course, lobbying Queen's Park is really important. As the province begins to embrace cycling like they should, like Quebec and BC have done, and invest significantly in infrastructure and other investments that are going to enhance cycling, they need to be better partners to you on this file, and I think they're starting to recognize that. So lobbying them would be something that I would appreciate. Urging Minister Shirelli to get on with the bike policy, which we're expecting in weeks now, would be very helpful. So I look forward to seeing you all next month in Niagara. I thank you again for the opportunity, and I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Wonder if members of council have any questions for our presenter at this time? Where's the location of the summit?
Welland.
Do we know where in Welland?
Someone from the back is going to tell you.
It's in the Wellness Center, Lincoln Road.
Wellness Center, okay. Thank you. We look forward.
Site sharetheroad.ca. All
Okay,
there.
well-
I'm sorry I didn't have it immediately
No,
available.
no, that's okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions for our presenters? Well, thank you very much for your presentation and the extensive work that you're doing, and as well the committee, and certainly take note that the committee is interested in this and actively working on it. And I do have a motion moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Papp, that the information submitted by the Pelham Active Transportation Committee regarding the bicycle-friendly community designation be received, and that council endorse and support the Pelham Active Transportation Committee in their application to seek a bicycle-friendly community designation for Pelham for the spring of 2013 round of applications. Comments or questions on that? Councillor Papp?
A quick question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Planning. By us applying and being designated, and perhaps, I don't know, Eleanor, if you could,
Sure.
are we lobbying, in fact, and we are successful in becoming a bicycle-friendly community? How does this impact on future planning considerations for other developers who may apply to us and say, you know, you're considering building these subdivisions? Does that, maybe it doesn't, does it force them to consider those types of site plan considerations?
I think that's a question for Mr.
Or
Larimer.
Mr. Mallarme?
Thank you. Well, as you will likely recall, in the East Found Hill Secondary
Right.
Plan, we identified
Right.
specific main roads to accommodate different forms of transit, but active transportation in particular. And we created loops using not just the roads, but also the trail system that goes through the municipality. The region also offers, when we're reconstructing road, if we're putting in bike lanes, some contribution towards the widening of the road surface to accommodate that facility.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Larman.
Councillor.
That's purposely why I did that, because in fact, we are embracing this. So our application, along with being submitted, our actual designated practice has been to adapt that, particularly has been suggested by the Pelham Transportation Committee. So I'm happy to, and the general public needs to know that this isn't new. This is something, but we can build upon it, and future developments, as others come forward and ask us, what would you like to see in these land use plans? We can say, these are the components we wish to see, because we've embraced that whole walkable, healthy, friendly transportation enterprise in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? There being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thanks again for the presentation. We look forward to working together with the Active Transportation Committee on that, and thank you for your commitment to assist us with that, members of the community. We have one more presenter, and I'd hope that folks will just stay for a minute to hear our presenter. It's Douglas Johnson from the Welland Rotary Club.
PowerPoint? It was only in PDF. I can see the PDF.
Pardon me?
I didn't receive a PowerPoint on that one, only PDF.
Okay, let me see.
Sorry for the confusion. Can you, is the computer on?
Yeah, computer's on.
Okay.
How do I get this out? How do I get this?
Didn't receive a PDF, only the,
Kingston.
He who helps himself helps himself.
when you're ready, just click.
Something like that. Good point.
It'll just go to the next slide.
Sorry for that. Good
Oh,
evening.
thank you. Go ahead.
Mayor Dave and ladies and gentlemen of the council and members of our local community. I'm Douglas Johnson. I'm a member of the Welland Rotary Club. I'm the director of the International Committee. And we have presently a client in Guatemala, Villanueva, who is seeking a used fire engine. And I understand that you will be replacing some of your engines in this next year. And I'm requesting you make a donation to Villanueva. Let me tell you a little bit about Villanueva. In fact, if you don't know where Guatemala is, it's just south of Mexico. If you come down the central republics, Guatemala is the one just south of Mexico. It's a municipality in the Guatemala Department of Guatemala. It's located about 16 kilometers south of Guatemala City. It has a population of 700,000, and it's the second largest city in the country. It's a fairly densely populated kind of environment. There we go. This is the kind of road that you encounter in that city. very much like our 401 or our QEW at 7 o'clock in the morning. And
It's a bit bigger than here, I see.
this is the city. It's on the hillside there. As you can see, it's very dense and there are narrow streets. It's a volunteer, totally volunteer fire station. It responds to fire and ambulance calls. And it's funded by donations and manned by only volunteers. It's the fire engine presently in place is very old and can't be serviced. It can't be repaired beyond where it's at right now. There are 45 to 56 fires per year. That means 4 to 5 fires a month. Guatemala City does provide a fire engine and firefighting equipment when available, but it takes over 30 minutes on a good day to get to a fire in Villa Nueva. This is the old engine, really beyond repair and ready for the scrap heap. Just in tune with that, their fire equipment, their protective clothing is fairly poor, as is their leggings. And that's my presentation, really. It's quick and short. Thank you for your consideration of donating this engine and any surplus protective clothing to the city of Villanueva in Guatemala. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do members of council have any questions for Mr. Johnston? Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a bit of a conversation internally with the fire chief and Councillor Papp, and we're looking at, we're replacing all of our SCBA because the standards are here that, sorry, we can't use it anymore because it's past its best before date. I'm quite positive, looking at what's available in Guatemala, that there are no standards there. So any equipment that is surplus waste and cannot be used here certainly would be of value to them. And, so this type of equipment, I think we would have to scrap anyway. So there is no scrap value for that, I don't think. So that certainly wouldn't affect your budget, Chief. Or if it would, then please inform us. But looking at that, I'm wondering what we do with surplus equipment or surplus vehicles, if in fact that may impact on the fire chief's budget as well. So,
Okay,
but definitely stuff that we would be throwing away anyway should be considered to go down there because they certainly can use it and they wouldn't be under the same stringent standards certainly that we are. So,
Thank you, Councillor. Maybe I'll ask the fire chief to just comment briefly on that. Chief?
Thank you. Yeah, there's a couple different ways of looking at things. Currently, in Ontario, especially in Ontario, we're required to replace a lot of our safety equipment, bunker gear, or turnout gear. After 10 years, it has to be inspected and approved, and when it fails, we have really no recourse for it. And there's a program right now that Mississauga Fire has been doing for a number of years, and they gather all this up and they donate it to cities in third world countries and so forth. So we've been participating with Mississauga Fire, not saying that we are obligated to that, so we certainly probably would have something along the bunker gear line for you. The SCBA, we're currently evaluating that. There might be some cost recovery on that whole program. We haven't finalized it yet. So when we get there and if it's deemed scrap, then it'll be up to your direction and what we're going to do with that. And as far as vehicle goes, we're probably not in line to replace any vehicles for a few years now. So, or vehicle-wise, like we got really good equipment. All our equipment's like, I would say probably looking at 5 years before we start thinking about replacing vehicles. So, but there are some opportunities possibly for other things in our system. So,
Thank you, Chief. Councillor, anything further?
No, thank you.
No? Any other members of council? Thank you very much for the presentation. I do have a motion, and it is moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the information submitted by the Welland Rotary Club requesting a donation of used surplus fire engine and/or protective clothing be received. I wonder if we want to forward this to the fire chief with the intention that should things come up that you'll raise it.
yeah, sure.
So maybe that direction will be understood?
Absolutely, yes,
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call the question on this with that direction, that this be forwarded to the fire chief for consideration. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for the presentation. And those are presentations and delegations. Our next item of business is adoption of the minutes. And I would ask, can somebody ask Councillor Papp to please rejoin us? Councillor Papp's the seconder of this motion, unless somebody else wants to second it, but it has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Papp, that the minutes of the following council meeting be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. This is our regular council meeting of September 4th, 2012. I think I need a seconder for that, so Councillor King will second that. Thank you, Councillor. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. The next item of business is consent agenda items, and we have a few correspondence items. Would members of council like to lift any of the correspondence items we have before us under consent agenda? There being none, it has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor Durley, that the following consent agenda items be received and approved. Information correspondence items received to September 12, 2012. 1, St. John Ambulance regarding their therapy dog program. 2, a letter of thanks from Pelham Cares for the use of the Fenwick Fire Hall, the former Fenwick Fire Hall, for a community food drive. 3rd, notice of draft site plan, revised study area and public meeting scheduled for September 20th from the Niagara Region Wind Corporation, and I just want to note that that's not the Niagara Region, that is a separate corporation. And then the last item is from the Niagara Region, and it's a copy of the municipal class environmental assessment on Regional Road 20 between Haste and Lookout Streets. Any comments or questions on any of those items of correspondence? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it worthy of re-announcing, if you will, as a reminder that the environmental assessment study for Regional Road 20, just up the hill there, is going to take place, and certainly they're looking for public input, and that will take place on Tuesday, September 25th, from 6 until 8 at Fire Station 1 in Fawn Hill. And I think there's been a lot of concern about that road itself and the traffic on that road, so I'm sure that many of our residents in that area will be there to express their thoughts, concerns, and suggestions to improve. So just an announcement, again, for awareness, that September 25th is the day if you want to give some input. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I note as well that it does include a municipal road, a portion of the road, the portion of Hayes Street between Cambro and Regional Road 20. So that's part of the EA process, and I'm pleased that staff are working together with the regional staff on that process. Others for any of the items of correspondence? There being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. The next item is correspondence requiring action. The first item has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Clark. That action communication item number 1 being a letter from the Pelham Historical Society seeking Horticultural Society, the Pelham Horticultural Society seeking council's direction on the purchase of the 1812 bicentennial roses be received, and that council affirm the town's interest in the Horticultural Society's purchase of the roses from the second propagation as detailed in their correspondence, and that the clerk be so directed to advise the society. Discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that action communication item number 2, being a request from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario requesting support of the resolution regarding the federal long-term infrastructure plan be received, and that the resolution contained therein be endorsed and supported, and that the clerk be directed to so advise the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the federal government, and our local member of parliament. Any discussion on this resolution? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is presentation consideration of reports. The first is reports from members of council, and I have 2 reports. The first is regarding the Big Move Cancer Ride, not Cancer Run, but Cancer Ride, as it appears on the agenda, which took place on September 9th, 2012. Council will recall a delegation to council back in April from the organizers of the Big Move Cancer Ride, promoting the ride through Niagara and also asking if they could make use of Old Pelham Town Hall as a stop, rest facility, and also designating specific routes in the town. Council agreed to that, and the funds raised were to support the Walker Family Cancer Center in St. Catharines for all of Niagara. During the presentation, I slipped Mr. Lorimer a note asking whether Craig, the 100-mile Lorimer, is ready to go. And Mr. Lorimer agreed to that at the council meeting, but I think he challenged each of us to pledge him in support for that. And his goal was $1,000 to raise. He spent 10 weeks training to prepare for the 100-mile ride on a mountain bike, which is 160 kilometers. And he also expanded his fundraising outside of staff and council. And I'm pleased to report on his behalf, and we'll ask him to comment later, but that he raised more than $3,700 for this, and outstanding. And I just wanted to thank you very much, Craig, for representing the town on this initiative and organizing it and getting the fundraising and training. Considerable effort to you. So kudos to you. I think we should give you a round of applause for this. Any comments?
Well, I sent an email around, and occasionally I do things that are sort of off the wall. and really, when I said I would do it, I did it more as like a personal challenge, and I wasn't thinking too much about it. I just said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And but it was neat because along the way I got to talk to lots of people who are affected by it, whether personally or in their families or close friends. And during the ride, it became fairly emotional for me. I was riding in honor of a family friend, and wasn't expecting that. And then I had the chance to ride alongside a couple of people who were also survivors, and Daryl Nahara and his brother Tim. Get to ride a short distance with them, and it was really great. And I feel like I did a lot of work in getting ready and everything, but it was the generosity of the people around this table and around the room, and other people in the town hall here, and just when I kind of threw it open to all the people that I knew, I was kind of overwhelmed, and so it was a great opportunity, and it was much more of a blessing to me than I thought it would be. Next year, I mean, it's growing every year. They raised over $500,000. They're accepting donations until the end of October. So if anybody wants to go on bigmovecancerride.com, if they didn't get a chance, or someone's listening, or if Mr. Campbell puts it in the paper, whatever, they're continuing to accept pledges until then. But just looking forward to next year. A good chunk of the ride is in Pelham, and I think it would be really neat if the town, or whether it's staff or somebody else that's just in the town, jumped in and manned one of the booths, or lent support out there. It was really neat to just see people at intersections or whatever, just kind of cheering the riders on. And Mr. Robbins, who isn't here tonight, he was at Canberra and Hay Street, and he came up and told me he was going to be there the week before. I was riding up and I go, Mr. Robbins, it's Craig. And he was just, it's a four-way stop, it's a four-way stop. And it wasn't until I was kind of right beside him he realized it was me. And then he swatted me with the placard. But anyways, it was great to see him out there. And just, faces that you recognize. And there's, he was going to try and find out how many riders were from Pelham, just so that he could kind of report that to council as well. And I think that would be kind of neat to hear. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you, Craig. We really appreciate you representing the town. Thank you. And perhaps that's something we should consider next year, because as Craig indicated, a significant portion of it is in Pelham and the rest stop in Pelham. And perhaps that's something we should think about. The numbers I have, Mr. Larimer, are that there were 439 riders and raising more than $500,000. So that's outstanding.
Wow.
Did you want to add something?
Well, I was going, just one thing, is that there's 3 levels of the race. There's 50K, 100K, and then 160. And that there's an opportunity for a team. So, it's not that hard.
That's something else we need to consider as well. Thank you for your enthusiasm and thank you for your dedication in doing it as well. So thank you very much. I do have another report, and I appreciate council adding this to the agenda on short notice. And this is regarding the final report by Dr. Kevin Smith, the provincially appointed supervisor to the Niagara Health System. Council will recall in the spring I raised this here at this council, looking for feedback and information from council and the community, as Dr. Smith put forward in the spring an interim report and looking for feedback from the mayors of the southern tier, as he called them, and the regional chair in terms of some siting. Dr. Smith, among the 23 recommendations that he outlined in the final report on Friday regarding NHS restructuring, suggested that a new South Hospital should be built in the QEW and Lions Creek area of Niagara, and that new South Hospital should include emergency and critical care, regional stroke center, regional geriatrics program, total joint replacement center, general internal medicine and surgical services, complex care, and maternal child inpatient pediatrics. Regarding pediatrics and maternal child, that will go in an interim basis to the new St. Catharines Hospital, and when the new South Hospital is built, the intention of Dr. Smith, or the recommendation, is that it will be moved to that new facility. Dr. Smith also recommended operating 2 freestanding urgent care centers in South Niagara's sites and locations to be determined, and closing the existing facilities that are in Port Colborne, Fort Erie, Niagara Falls, Welland, and Niagara-on-the-Lake. You'll recall that the decision on the siting was actually one of 2 for the hospital facility, was one of 2 in terms of a unanimous decision recommended by myself and my mayoral colleagues and the regional chair. And we recommended that after we met 5 times and reviewed the population densities, ambulance call volumes, drive times, municipal infrastructure, planning considerations, NHS referrals, and ER usage. I wanted to say that this was one of the sites that was designated unanimously by myself and my colleagues, and I'm pleased that Dr. Smith honored our recommendations after we heard from the public and considered these things as well. I wanted to let council know and the community know that I did communicate with Dr. Smith directly, because I indicated if that site area was chosen, it's a real potential that the majority or many from Pelham would, instead of going to the new Southern Hospital, would turn instead and go to the new Northern Hospital. I have his assurance, and I got it again, had it in the spring and got it again Friday morning, that he confirmed that Pelham residents will be provided care at a site they choose to use. If it is the north site, Pelham residents will be welcome there. If it's a southern site, they'll be welcome there as well. So it will be wherever is best chosen for our community. I think the interesting issue could be the UCC and the siting of the UCC. Again, those are to be in, I think he stated in the report, in locations that are not necessarily existing locations. They would be in leased facilities, and they would be determination by EMS response time and also demographics and call volumes and population densities. So I wanted to just report to council on that, and I can open it up for questions or comments. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Understanding that this report had come out, I think you will find that we made a motion that staff perhaps be directed to encourage the decision makers in this regard to think about Pelham when looking to site urgent care centers, either in or near Pelham would be useful. I would expect, given the spectrum of things that occur in one's life, urgent care may be required more frequently than hospitalization. So something placed strategically nearby would be of great use and interest to Pelham, I think, and certainly if it were to be cited within Pelham, there would be even additional benefits as well.
Thank you, Councillor. This was just handed to me, and I appreciate that. So it's moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley, that staff be directed to investigate the feasibility of situating one of the proposed Niagara Health System urgent care center sites in or near Pelham to better serve local residents. So thank you for raising that. Councillor Durley, did you want to comment any further? Or?
Just echo Councillor Ribbiak's comments. I think it would certainly be advantageous to our community, and we are central to the whole region, actually, and very easy to get to. So I think it's a logical choice. However, I'm not the person making the decision.
Right. Thank you. Others to this? Councillor Papp?
Well, how should I say, welcome this, but I guess the question I have is, why do we need staff to do this? The fact is that the Ministry of Health will make that ultimate determination, that in fact we should be stronger than that. If you wish to just pass a resolution that we would like one of the urgent care centers located in the Pelham area as part of the East Fonthill Secondary. Nothing, and I say it without prejudice to what Councillor Ribbiak and Durley are proposing, but I think all of you can read through all of this, is that this is directed by provincial policy and by LHINs. So why don't we just state emphatically that's what we would like to see, is one of those two centers be located here in Pelham. And that would be my only comment. But if there's need for staff to, and it's not that I want to put more work to assess that, I think it's already been determined. They need an urgent care center to facilitate on both sides of the South Niagara area. Why not just say it? We want one. We're very interested in having one.
I agree with that.
I don't know how the rest of you feel. I just feel it's just like I like your study says, no further studies needed.
Yeah, exactly.
We already know what we need. So why don't we just say it, that we would like, and I say it again without prejudice and without criticism, let's just say we would like the urgent care center be, Pelham be considered as one of the site-specific locations.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to turn to staff to see. The motion on the floor is to investigate the feasibility. Would you anticipate a report would come back to this council, or I mean, I'd have to entertain an amendment, Councillor, but let's hear from the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think in comment to that, the question isn't so much as do we need one or do we want one? I think the question is how might we get one?
Right.
And that is the role of staff, I believe, in this particular situation, to put that type of information together to assist council in pursuing that objective.
Thank you. Councillor?
So that's in tandem to what I'm saying is, one, we state emphatically we want one. Staff would work on the mechanics of how that would be facilitated with the Ministry of Health and the LHIN, because the LHIN will obviously be involved.
Yes, of course.
So I'm open to that. Just I think we got to be straightforward, just like our colleagues in the other community are very clear that they wanted their hospital reconstructed and renovated. We want an urgent care center here.
Okay.
But I'll leave it to the discretion of my colleagues. If you want to wait till then, and Mr. Ottaway can bring back a report. I was just trying to not fast track it, just state
I
a fact.
appreciate your enthusiasm, and
Well, it's not enthusiasm. It's a very serious issue that has to be.
Yes.
It has to be moving forward, and I've spoken to you about some other initiatives that are being undertaken by another corporation down that we're part of in Port Colborne, and I've had discussions, and I'd like to see us be very emphatic about it.
I agree with you.
well, I think, Councillor, the motion on the floor is that staff investigate this, be directed to investigate it, and I presume report back to council on that and how it could happen. If the councillor wants to make an amendment to the motion, now would be the time.
I wish to make an amendment that the town of Pelham be considered as one of the sites for the urgent care center, as noted in Dr. Smith's report.
So that we petition or request the
We
Ministry of
request a
Health.
formal, we petition and request the Ministry of Health / the LIN, as it's suggested there, to consider us as one of the urgent care centers. And that staff, and that goes to Mr. Mayor, to the other question you had, is the case for support will be prepared by staff as
Right.
indicated in the
Well,
first
that's-
motion.
Right.
So that's what I'm proposing as an amendment.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Kersey. Just make sure we have the wording of that. Now, to the amendment. You've spoken to it, Councillor. Thank you
I have
very much.
nothing more.
Councillor Kersey, do you want to add anything further?
I don't think I have anything to add to what Councillor Papp has said. I agree with his position. I think it's far better to take a very firm stand, get our wishes out there. Let's not mamby-pamby around, and let's rely on staff to help us make our case.
Okay. Thank you. Others? Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Frankly, that amendment, I think, probably captures one's ultimate hope. I think the original motion was an attempt to tread lightly and softly and make no enemies along the way. But, you know, challenged as namby-pamby, I would certainly want to rise to that challenge and suggest that it's a well-worded and
You're a
well-placed
big guy.
amendment.
I may need urgent care.
All right, thank you. Others? Councillor Durley.
I agree, and I think the motion as originally put forward had the indication that we were desirous of having one of those and that we needed the support stuff, and that was my understanding when I seconded it. So I fully understand the urgency that Councillor Papp has in his voice. However, let's do it right so we don't have to do it over. Let's not, put a something forward before we can back it up. And I think staff can give us the information as to calls, as to demographics, as to ease of locating and so on and so forth. So all of these things are important. So we can include that in our request to them, saying this is what we want and this is why we want it and this is why we deserve it. I think that is a more conscientious way to go forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, any other councillors? Councillor Kersey?
Just as a rebuttal to what Councillor Durley has said, I don't think the proposed amendment in any way takes away from being prepared and presenting a proper case. I think it just clarifies council's position in saying emphatically that we want one, and that this is how we're going to get there. Staff's report will help us make our case, but we're determining at this point that we want one.
Okay, thank you. Others? Okay, the clerk is writing out the amendment for me, and I appreciate that. Can you read it out, please?
Moved by Councillor Pop, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that staff be directed to prepare a case to support a direction to submit comments to the Ministry of Health and the LIN to consider the town of Pelham as the location for one of the urgent care centers.
I thought the amendment was different. It was to petition the Ministry of Health.
That we be considered as a priority site.
I think it was more the
Petition the Ministry and the LIN to consider the town of Pelham as,
a location
A
for
location.
the
A desired
new
location.
UCC.
yes, but then they added to that by saying that staff prepare a case to support that direction to be submitted to the ministry.
I think that was the first part of the motion. So it's, the amendment is this portion here, when it was understood that the
Sorry, I
the
thought they
original
also,
motion.
I thought they also added to that amendment with that
Counselor?
last paragraph.
Did you add that amendment, or is that understood in the first, it's understood in the first part of the motion, is it
First
not?
part of the motion's understood, the case for support be built. I think what I'm saying is, I can't be any more blunt, is we want to be the desired location as one of those urgent care centers. And yes, you have to build the case, but I think if you don't say it, it won't happen.
So the motion would be that the Ministry of Health and the LIN be petitioned to consider the town of Pelham as a location for one of the UCCs.
Right, exactly. That's it.
We'll just let the clerk write it out. Normally, we have the motions written out for us, so.
Make a case for it if we really want it.
write it in shorthand, you won't be able to read it.
Right on your computer.
Want that to say an urgent care center as identified in Dr. Smith's report, so that we reference that?
Sure,
or-
yes, but we'll add that.
Just wordsmithing. On the fly.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your assistance on that. So the amendment is, thank you again, that the Ministry of Health and the LIN be petitioned to consider the town of Pelham as one of the locations for the proposed urgent care centers as identified in Dr. Smith's report.
Perfect.
Okay? I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is, the amendment is carried. And now on the main motion as amended, any further discussion? There being none, I call the question on the main motion as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, Ms. Pizzato, for assisting us in the wordsmithing. We are still with reports from members of council, and Councillor Papp has 2 items. Go ahead,
Very
Councillor.
much, and if I may, Mr. Mayor, if I could have discretion and latitude from the members of council, I just have one small item. I was not able to address it because it was outside of during the course of the presentation. So it's just a small item dealing with United Way, and special thanks to members of council. If you're okay with that.
Yeah.
First of all, the Pelham Chamber met on September the 10th. We had an extensive discussion, and I want to congratulate Councillor Durley and the efforts of his team on the sign bylaw. Very positive reactions, and they're very looking forward to the implementation of that. And we felt that most of the things have been covered, and I do understand there's going to be further discussions about signage on public property. Secondly, much of the discussion was revolving around the whole impact of the Pan Am Games and what will happen. It's coming fast and furious, and the question of how that will affect business over the next 2 or 3 years from all contexts, particularly in the South Niagara area. And in particular, was the focus along the Welland Canal, and whether there's anything that we can be involved in along those areas, and we will have further dialogue with the members of the Welland Recreational Canal Corporation with that respect. Thirdly, the Ruby Awards are going to again be taking place this year on October the 19th at Lookout. I hope that all of you will get a chance. I have tickets that if you wish to either come to the full awards presentation or the party itself. These are awards cut across a variety of areas, from those of community service to employees, Youth of the Year, Business Award, Business Initiative, Venture, and for the first time, ECHO, Action Award of Excellence. And I know, Mr. Mayor, then some of you will have a chance to come to the nomination breakfast, which is on September the 27th at the Seaway Mall at 8:45, and hopefully that you'll get a chance to stop by. There are a number of people that have been nominated, I understand, from the Pelham area. These are very, and hopefully you can join us for the October 19th festivities. My second report basically is a suggestion, and I did talk to Mr. Mayor and CAO. Some of you recall last month or so, you've seen some advertisements about the South Coast Tourism Network, which basically is a group of municipalities, not ourselves particularly, that are promoting the whole Port Colborne Wainfleet area as a South Coast destination. Now, they have approached the City of Welland, and has also approached the Chamber about whether we'd be interested in participating in this type of network in promoting the whole southern area of Niagara as a tourist destination. So I just throw it out there for consideration of staff, and we have never gone, they've had quite a bit of dialogue over the last 12, 14 months, and actually parlayed that into a marketing effort over the last 2 or 3 months during the summer. So my question is whether we wish to participate, and maybe staff can discuss this further with their economic development people in Port Colborne to see how that fits or doesn't fit with us.
Maybe, Council, that's something that we can add to a priorities and planning
yeah.
agenda and discuss it a little bit there.
In light of what I heard with the heritage and, promoting tourism, that they're sort of, they're moving ahead with it. I think we need to I guess, get on the boat with them if we think it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
And thirdly, I just wanted to take a chance, I didn't get a chance to state this when the business rising from the minutes. The Mayor's Youth Advisory, once again, under the United Way of South Niagara campaign, raised $300 for the campaign, and as a volunteer now, I just wanted to publicly state, and for the Mayor as well, that I'm going to match the $300 that the youth have raised. And as an encouragement and an incentive for all of us to get involved. And secondly, I just wanted to note that our gala this year starts off on September 20th, and for the first time is being held in the town of Pelham at Casa Vostra. It starts at 6 p.m., and hopefully we can get some members of council to be there. I will be there. Many of you are maybe familiar that myself and Terry Duffy and Rick Lowe's have, the three amigos have pledged $15,000 as an encouragement for people to step forward and give. We want to not just talk, we want to put our money where our mouth is, but more importantly, we want to also emphasize just the very difficult need that is going to be coming to fruition very quickly, and our ability as United Ways to be able to meet those. So on Thursday night, if you get a chance to stop by, we'll be there at Casa Vostra. It'll be a very light event. It'll be emceed by our campaign chair, Mr. John Krucko, who is the director of the Niagara Catholic Separate School Board. So on that note, I thank you for your latitude allowing me to share that with you, and appreciate again the chance to be able to share to talk to you about this.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Councillor. And I think the United Way is going to be making a presentation to us at our next council meeting on October
That's correct.
the 1st.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your help with this.
And the MEAC will be thrilled that you've matched that, and perhaps councillors can consider topping up or adding to Councillor
Every little
Papp's
bit.
donation, especially as we hear that presentation at our next council meeting.
Thank
you very much for your reports, and I appreciate your ongoing work with the Chamber and other initiatives. Our next item, staff reports requiring action. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that report TR 53, HRSDC grant application, AODA website accessibility requirements be received, and the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. The council approve an application to apply for the Human Resources Development Canada Enabling Accessibility Fund for the following project: the AODA website accessibility project. Discussion. We have the report before us. There being Councillor Kersey?
Brief question, Mr. Mayor. Have we, this $30,000, is it currently in our 2012 budget, or will this become a budgetary item in the 2013 budget?
Ms. Pupel?
It's not currently part of our 2012 budget. It would be if the approval of the Website Innovation Committee results and the capital budget is approved for 2013.
Thank you, Councillor. I think it's one of the initiatives as well in the strategic plan is to remake the website, and there are certain initiatives, and I understand there's a staff team that's multi-disciplinary staff team that's working on this, so no doubt that will be part of it as well. Thank you. Anything else? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. The next item is report from Regional Councillor Brian Beatty. Councillor, you've been very patient there in the back row.
Third meeting since
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff, that's for you the report for the home council for today, but for the committee meetings that took place on the 4th of this September and last Thursday's council meetings. At corporate services, we approved the MedBuy Corporation to be the group purchasing organization partner for the purchase of pharmaceuticals, med supplies, and equipment for the next 4 years. And also, there's a new electronic patient care reporting software hardware system that's cost just under $250,000 to be implemented with your long-term care homes. And you may be interested with what I saw earlier with your strat plan for your own council. We approved the Niagara Region Corporate Synergy Strategy. And get some ideas there or share that information. And we approved the addition of 1 staff and full-time equivalent in the IT solutions area to perform business continuity and disaster recovery functions should the need arise. Integrated Community Planning Committee. Student presentation from representative from the Mountain View Niagara Escarpment Community Association, representing proposed transmission lines to be installed along Mountain View Road by Niagara Region Wind Energy Corporation. Director staff will prepare a report on the matter for committee. John was also gone to the Escarpment this is one of the most pristine areas that they're looking at, having very massive towers coming down. And it's our belief, talking to the Escarpment Commission now and the region, that there are alternate routes that are possible to get them across the escarpment without, again, putting another very significant scar. Supported the Accessibility Advisory Committee's endorsement of the acquisition of text software to replace the current TUI service, and noted an information report was given on the lakefront enhancement strategy, noting that a draft policy will be coming about that in the first quarter of 2013. And there's another report that's quite a plus for Niagara, the best practices regarding implementing agricultural value added. We have parts of the most restricted agricultural areas. You consider the escarpment policy, the green belt policy, the agricultural restrictions, etc. And we've been doing a fair amount in Niagara and getting some cooperation from the provincial government to allow more value-added activities for farmers to maintain their farms and be sustainable. And we support the motion to reaffirm the position Council is taking to maintain and enhance the Hansi boundary of the Thorndale Cane Delta Earth Science Area of national and scientific interest, and directing the Chair to write a letter to the Minister in this regard and to arrange a meeting with the Minister. The meeting has already been arranged. Thanks to your Mayor for bringing that issue forward. That's been an item which has been on at least since 2009 in terms of an area, in terms of saying rather than adding to the existing ANSI, getting rid of that designation and going to little pockets here and there. And the general feeling is the scientific community, in particular the planners, are saying you should be looking at this as a world, world basket site in terms of having a complete area as a total, rather than being, as the Mayor calls it, parcels of cheese.
Cheese, yeah.
For Public Health and Social Service Committee, 3 presentations from 3 groups, and this was a very, in my view, the most profound presentation I've seen in my 9 years on council. It was first of all a presentation from the Commissioner herself of Community Services, then the Social Assistance Reform Network, and the YMCA regarding concerns resulting from the provincial government's termination of community startup and maintenance benefits as of January 1st, 2013. Noting that the former benefit of $5 million has been reduced or replaced by a $670,000 benefit. These are for the poorest people in Niagara. That's an 88% drop. These are people who may not have money to do first and last month, but will get a top-up so they can get into housing. These are people who may not be able to pay their excessive energy bills with a very cold season of the year, who are now going to be out in the cold. And it's a very, very severe situation. We're going to be hopefully seeing more action in that regard in terms of communicating with the provincial government of how serious this particular cut has been. And I predict that there will be some efforts around the province to in fact have this as another downloading. In other words, we can't pay for it anymore, so you guys of the region throw $4 million onto your tax bill to top it up to keep the poorest people safe. During the implementation of a single paramedic response unit in the township of Wainwright, this was widely debated in terms of council. Some considerable number of time, I think almost every person at council spoke to it for one reason or another. What they're saying is basically we aren't meeting our own guidelines for the response time in Wainwright. It's obviously it's an agriculture area, it's not going to be as fast as the response time as the urban areas, but we're not even meeting our own expectations. And it would be far too prohibitive to put an ambulance station in Wainwright itself. It wouldn't match the call volume and so on. So what they're going to have to do is have an advanced care paramedic for 12 hours a day with an ambulance unit, basically going to the homes of people and giving first treatment. In many cases, phone call for an ambulance doesn't require an ambulance. But this will allow the patient to get care far sooner than they would. But to also stop unnecessary ambulance calls from going into Wainwright. The other proposition could have been moving the ambulances that currently serve Pelham and Port Colborne, West Lincoln, and so on further to Wainwright, but that would simply lessen or increase that response time. So I think it's a fairly good compromise that's been proposed for Wainwright. Received a report calling for provincial action on youth access to canning beds. Received a report from Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care regarding offload nurse funding initiative. That's been something to reduce the offload delay time period, and it's something that the government's continuing to fund nurse to try and take care of the patients to allow ambulance drivers to go on to the next call. Well, I shouldn't say ambulance drivers, it's paramedics. Held a lengthy discussion on the new normal, unemployment, and increasing social assistance caseloads in Niagara, and the workload impacts from individual policy, funding, and program delivery changes, and the resulting impact on client services. When the recession began, basically we did bring on another point about 9 individuals. I think to try and meet the quota of 120 caseload, it would have been up in the teens. We're now in a situation where, and this is I guess, the characters of the past. When a recession starts to be over, the actual lingering process for Ontario Works so we're seeing a very significant demand at the moment. The commissioner is asking us to start giving us consideration for our budget, 14 additional staff for social assistance. That might get us to the 120 ratio, that might get us to about the 160 caseload ratio. And from my perspective, the people who are now being affected, or many folks have never experienced going on social assistance before. Their EI has run out. It's probably been far more traumatic for all those individuals because they haven't had the support mechanism, they haven't had the experience before in terms of that. So, not very nice times in the short run. For the Public Works Committee, approved the 2012 Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Program, Phase 2, just over $830,000. Approved the delegation of authority and development charges of that to the Public Works Committee, and the transfer of development charges administration to the Public Works Department. Approved an updated policy on the collection of material by way of entry on private property. That was somewhat not done by the way. It's an easing of the policy. It's that where you have, like, say, a multi-residential development, and the garbage trucks have to go in, there's certain policy about turn lanes and like getting them in, out, and so on. And it's been somewhat restrictive. The policy is now being more permissive to allow recognition of different site plans and so on. So it's a positive policy. After I printed this out and read it, it doesn't look that way, but it's meant to be. Received report and approved the interior and exterior advertisements on regional transit buses, and received a report and legal comments on building competitiveness and proposed multimodal goods movement strategy for Ontario. Received a report and approved the transportation impact study guidelines. And those will be passed on to your planning department as they will in lower municipalities throughout, or local municipalities throughout Niagara. And finally, the written provision reports on the cost of expanding the walk-to composting facility, and a report on the Niagara Transit ridership and revenue update for the second quarter of 2012, which is showing good signs. It's not meeting what we hoped for. It's a target projection, but at least it's moving in the right direction. And at council itself, there was a presentation from the Niagara Police on Niagara's first prescription drug drop-off event. Very, very positive. They're getting great requests from around the country in terms of emulating the program elsewhere. Received a presentation on the Niagara Region Employees United Way campaign. We did reject the motion to implement zero-based budgeting, and supported a motion to request the inclusion of Niagara in the Southwestern Ontario Development Fund. Regional Council meets again on 6:30 on October 4th, and it's closed session.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beatty. We also have a meeting coming up this Thursday at regional headquarters for, I guess, a business planning session, they call it, regarding governance. So I won't be at the United Way event, Councillor, but I'll certainly see you there. Any questions for Councillor Beatty's very comprehensive report of regional activities? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A very brief question. Councillor Beatty, how, with the implementation of a single paramedic response unit, how will they be identifying those individuals who need the care? I mean, will there be a call center that they would call into requesting care come out to their home, or?
The call will go into 911 as normal, but the first responder will be this roving paramedic, advanced care paramedic that might have, okay? They have far more capabilities than the primary care paramedics. They will be the first assessment, so they'll be there faster than an ambulance could be, okay? That's number one. Number two, many of the calls that come in really don't require an ambulance. You just don't know who to call. So that person would say either continue to send the ambulance or keep it back in Pelham or one under the over, because I can handle the care here right on site. And they're connected by, well, first of all, GIS system tracking is done, and a very, very sophisticated electronic communication as well, right to the emergency room doctors themselves.
I'm just going to add to that. The response times that the average across Niagara is under 9 minutes. It's 8 minutes, but in Waynfleet it was upwards of 20 minutes for an ambulance response. So this is to address that very serious issue of that response time of the paramedics. Go ahead, Councillor.
As a follow-up, so this paramedic responder will be stationed in Waynfleet, working out of the fire hall, or?
My understanding is they're going to be mobile.
They'll be mobile.
12 hours a day. And we didn't get a report as to where they would be located on a regular basis. Not only will they be mobile for Waynfleet, they'll also be mobile should there be very serious circumstances in any one of the neighboring communities. So it's going to be an advantage to all the communities. But the first thing is try and get the wait times down significantly for the response. And because it will be an advanced care paramedic, they're getting, my opinion on this issue is that advanced care paramedics with the communication technology at the emergency center you are as in good hands there as you would be in the emergency room.
Go ahead.
And just as a comment, I have a bit of concern with a single responder, because particularly in life-threatening situations, it's preached over and over again that you want a team approach, you want support people there. I'm sure the chief can speak to that, that's the training. And there's a necessity also for life support equipment. Will they, it sounds like you're creating an ambulance to me.
May I clarify?
Go ahead.
The first response doesn't include fire department.
Oh, okay, sorry, okay. Okay.
Just getting the paramedic services, the advanced care paramedic here faster, making the determination of whether we continue the ambulance run in or whether we can. There is a project called the Omega Project, which is being undertaken in phase 2 right now, which is analyzing just that process. It's very prominent in England, where they look at the number of people who are asking for ambulances who maybe should be going to a walk-in clinic, but maybe don't have the primary care doctor to go to, that kind of contact, or it may be something that can be dealt with right on the spot, as opposed to bringing 2 paramedics and the ambulance all the way in. So in my view, we're looking at an improved service. It's been implemented, this plan is innovative for Ontario. It has been implemented in a community in Nova Scotia where they had the same thing, a very small call volume, very large geographic distances to go, and we're basically borrowing from the Nova Scotia paramedic service to implement this program.
Thank you.
Thank you. The addition of the fire department allays most of my concerns about it. I think it will provide additional support.
Yeah, and one of the things that came up, and it was clarified by the mayor appointed, is that a large number, I think about 50 volunteer firefighters, which you said, but because so many are full-time employed, it's the case there's only a smaller number, not necessarily with the full medical training, so this is going to augment their ability to provide first responder services.
Thank you. Anything further for Councillor Beatty?
Just to mention the case where the business planning session that we held last, it's not only was on governance, but the last one was basically the most thorough discussion of economic development and where we stand and where we need to go in the future. It was put together by our new economic development officer, and it's a case where all of the commissioners, and it was a very comprehensive program. My article, the last one that went out, dealt with the overview of that and foundations of how we can chart a new economic future for America. And the one this week gets into some of the very specifics in terms of what our average household income is compared to with the province, what our educational attainment rate is compared to the province, and so on, and some of the things that we need to work together. It's a large job to see a major transition of an economy from a highly manufacturing economy to a new economy, but there are signs that the various factors are working together. To me, I really complimented staff at the time because, well, I've seen this project and that project and that project in isolation. It was nice to see them all together. It was probably, I would say, more positive comments from councillors about the value of that session than any other business
Absolutely.
planning session we've had.
Thank you for raising it, and following our strategic planning here, I had that vision in mind in our prioritization process and made the motion, and it was approved by council there that we're going to go through a similar strategic planning prioritization process with that business approach. So that and that should be coming up in the next 2 months. So I'm looking forward to that as well, that we can actually prioritize those things. There's so many things on the plate to do in terms of economic development and other initiatives that within the next 2 months we should be able to prioritize that and really get moving on those items that are high priority.
Last thing, Mr. Mayor, I just would invite council, if you've not been to the Children's Water Festival put on by the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, this is the 10th year for it. We will have 5,000 children, grade 2 and grade 3, exposed to there are about 50 or more tents there, and their activity stations. I volunteer to teach to it, and I remind my wife every time I get home afterwards that she worked much harder in elementary school than I did in high school. 15-minute classes for a grade at a time, and 10 classes over the course of the day. If you have a chance to go to Balls any day of this week, it's something amazing. There's a lot of cultural changes happen over the 10 years because kids are coming home. They have an experiment, for example, where they're brushing their teeth, leaving the tap on. They measure the water consumption and they wet their toothpaste and do this and see how much water they could have saved. There's a lot of behavioral changes that are happening because of it. But it's Beth Hest from Fenwick is the key activity organizer for it. And on my behalf, I extend an invitation to you to drop in, take a look. I think you'll be impressed if you have the time.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for your report. Councillor Papp?
I didn't get a chance. A couple of quick questions. The presentation on the drug drop-off event, is that available on the website of the region?
That I can't tell you. I imagine it is, but I can't tell you for sure.
I'd like to see that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then secondly, this zero-based budgeting motion, I thought council had already decided on a percentage growth target.
Yes, there was one councillor in particular who wanted to go back to that process. The discussion was very, very lengthy. It was almost as long as, well, it was longer, pardon me, than the Wayne Fleet ambulance discussion. And the caveat for it was that there would be a significant cost to get our IT solutions to a point where they could do it as well as it should be, and a cost of up to 5 to 7 new FTE employees to manage it. It would be a very intensive process. My argument at the time for it was, right now, we have a very direct, clearly communicated thing, taxpayer affordability.
Right.
We've exceeded our goals in that for the last 6 years. Why would we want to get something that's multiple layers that goes into every line item in the budget that you or I couldn't possibly explain to the taxpayers in Niagara? So it was a very significant vote. I think only 6 people voted for it, if I'm not mistaken.
And in addition, we've also not only prioritized with the budget, but also we have a team, it's called the Responsive Region Implementation Team, that is moving its way through parts of the region to try to find efficiencies, and has done so with development services, and very successful on that. So it was felt by many that it was a kind of a duplication of services. Okay?
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to commend both of you. I did watch Regional Council. I normally don't, about the discussion regarding economic development. And my comments to the mayor is, let that individual that you were hired, do the work they were designated to do. And this is not a criticism, either you or the mayor. I was very disturbed by some of the discussions about reporting mechanisms and protocol and all the rest. You hired yourself a superstar quarterback. Let her do what she's got to do, and I think both of you know, and especially after what you heard with what's happening in community and social services, employment and jobs is top of the list here in getting people back to work. And you probably heard it's the first time in the history of the social assistance caseload that even though there's been efforts to try and get people, it's not dropping, it's rising.
Yeah.
So I like her, and I like the comments that were made by both of you, that let this individual do the work that she was appointed to do and get on with it.
There were some that would want her at every
Yes,
committee
I
meeting.
heard that, and I just was astounded. You don't need her there.
All right.
Get her out there.
Thank you, Councillor, and
We
thank you
agree.
very much, Councillor Beatty. Just
Right.
to remind you and inform all of the community, we have the third reading of a procedure bylaw on council tonight, and in that is a change of order of your presentation. So we've moved you up in the agenda. It will, if approved, I'm sure it will be, hearing of delegations and our presentations, and then your report as regional councillor. So a little bit earlier in the
That
agenda.
will be appreciated, because having supper at 9 is not my normal pattern. And it's a case where, that being said, Mr. Mayor, should there be an issue that you see upcoming on the agenda where you feel there would be value to have my presence, please inform me of that. I'd be glad to stay.
We greatly appreciate that. Thank you. And also a change in time, 6:30.
Yes, I got that.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
Good.
presentation. Greatly appreciate it. Next item of business, presentation consideration of bylaws. And here is that bylaw. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King, that leave now be given to present the following bylaw and dispense with the reading of the bylaw, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the Town of Pelham Council, its committees, and the conduct of its members, and the calling of meetings, and that the bylaw, having been considered a first and second time, be numbered as follows: bylaw 3,293, and that the bylaw be now considered a third time and passed, and the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding. Any further discussion on this? Lots of discussion. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much to all for your work on that, especially to Ms. Bizzato for your work in that over the years, and Mr. Ottaway most recently as well, and all staff on that particular procedure bylaw. So thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Papp, second by Councillor Kersey, that leave now be given to introduce the following bylaws and dispense with the reading of the bylaw. Bylaw number 2, being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 3,294, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136, 1987 as amended, Rittenhouse Estates. Bylaw number 3 is being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 3,285, being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 57 to the official plan of the town of Pelham. Bylaw number 4 being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 3,218, which was adopted in 2011, being a bylaw to establish the general committee for the 2010-2014 term of council and to appoint the chairs and vice chairs of the general committee divisions. And bylaw number 5, bylaw to for prohibiting or regulating signs or other advertising devices, and this bylaw shall be known as the sign bylaw. Discussion on any of those items. Councilor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make some comments with regard to the proposed sign bylaw. I'm going to be supportive of the sign bylaw because we need it, and we've done an awful lot of work, good work, to establish the sign bylaw that we have, and I think that we need to proceed with it. That having been said, I just wanted to note that I continue to have concern about what I see as potentially a shortcoming within the bylaw, and that shortcoming is with regard to an inability within the bylaw for council or staff, not council, rather, but staff, to prohibit a sign whose content might be deemed to be in violation of charter or other standards or laws that may in fact impact on signs. I want to point out that not all signs are commercial signs. All signs are regulated in the town, are regulated by this sign bylaw. I can envision the rare, hopefully so rare that it never occurs, but I can envision an occasion when an opinion might be sought to be expressed in the form of a sign. A permit would need to be received. And it may be that subjective opinions being what they are, they might want to be expressed in ways that might fall outside what's allowed within the charter, for example, and we would have no ability to deal with it. Again, I expect those occasions to be rare, so I'm not going to do anything but support the bylaw. But I do point out that in the event that staff is asked to deal with the presence of a sign that might not meet an acceptable standard as defined within the charter, and I acknowledge the legal advice that we have received to suggest that only on the basis of the charter could a challenge be made to sign content. But if such an occasion should arise, we really are not in a position to do anything about it within the sign bylaw. I point that out. I think it's something that we should be aware of, and that at some point in the future we may want to think about that. I do think it leaves us in a position where if asked to do something, we would have to say, you've got to go to somebody else. We can't do it. And that's really not a position that I'm entirely comfortable with. Mr. Mayor, if there are any questions, then I would be happy to respond to those if I haven't been clear enough.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any others? I don't know if you were looking for specific clarity from staff on it, or?
Mr. Mayor, I did ask questions with regard to this of staff via an email earlier, and we had some discussion about it.
Okay.
And the answers that I received to those questions are really that the charter is not applicable law. If there is applicable law to signs and a sign is proposed that's outside of that, we do have the power to deal with that. It's those very rare but very difficult situations when people express themselves subjectively, choose a sign to do it. If it's inappropriate, we can't do anything about it.
Okay. So you're not asking for any special action?
I'm not. I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, you raised it at a previous meeting, so thank you for that. Others let's stick to the sign bylaw just for the moment. Any others to the sign bylaw? Certainly, again, appreciate the work of the committee, as Councillor Papp alluded to earlier with the Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate their involvement and the involvement of the Pelham Business Association and representatives from the agricultural community. Councillor Durley, you chaired that committee as well. Excellent effort and work over the years. So thank you very much for that, and staff as well for their involvement in this. I know there's still some work to be done, and that was at our last council meeting. Councillor Durley, did you want to say anything further?
No, this is the first chapter, and we'll certainly be working on the other matters that are housekeeping matters and those that deal with signs on public property. That should be coming forward in the very near future, and we'll reconvene the committee as soon as we get the information that we need to go forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on any of the bylaws? I do have a question, I believe it's for Mr. Larmor, regarding bylaw number 2 and 3, the Rittenhouse Estates and the official plan. Can you provide some clarity to that, please?
I can. The bylaws 3284 and 3285 were circulated shortly after council's approval. We did, however, make an error in the number of people that were circulated. There were a couple people that were missed. When we noticed the error and we recirculated, we understood that we missed the Planning Act provision that the bylaw be circulated within 15 days of council's approval. Knowing that the plan of subdivision is approved, is appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board, and that there is some likelihood that the zoning bylaw and official plan will also be appealed, we decided to ensure that there was no technicality attached to the approval and council and the circulation. So we're choosing to repeal the bylaw and repass the bylaws, and they will be circulated in these coming days.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarity. I appreciate that, and people in the circulation areas can look forward to receiving that again from you. Thank you. Anything further on the bylaws? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. It has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the following bylaws have been considered be considered the first time and numbered as follows. Bylaw 3,294 through to bylaw 3,297 be now considered a second and third time and passed, and the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. The next item is motions and notices of motion. We have two motions. Moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Durley. Whereas the town of Pelham is the most vibrant, creative, and caring community in Niagara, and whereas the council of the town of Pelham has declared that a principle of its stated mission is to ensure that the community is a safe place to live, work, and play, and whereas the Ontario Municipal Act, Section 224A, defines the role of council to represent the public and to consider the well-being and interests of the municipality, and whereas the council of the town of Pelham recognizes that Regional Road 20, which traverses through the town of Pelham, has a high volume of traffic which travels at a posted speed of 50 kilometers per hour, and whereas the town of Pelham is aware that there are a large number of residents entering and exiting Regional Road 20, particularly during the hours of 8 a.m. and 9:30 to 9:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., and whereas there exist two schools along Regional Road 20 from Hay Street in the west to Station Street in the east, and whereas the council of the town of Pelham recognizes that the regional municipality of Niagara has jurisdiction over the operation of Regional Road 20, be it therefore resolved that the council of the town of Pelham hereby petitions the regional municipality of Niagara to work with the town of Pelham in ensuring a safe environment for its citizens, and to establish a school zone along Regional Road 20 from Hay Street in the west to Station Street in the east, with a speed limit not to exceed 40 kilometers per hour, to be in effect during the timelines cited above, with all appropriate signage and penalties, and that staff from the town of Pelham is hereby directed to work with the regional municipality of Niagara to accomplish same within a reasonable amount of time and report back to council in a timely manner with respect to the progress of discussion with respect to the establishment of said school zone. Councillor Kersey, Councillor Durley, your motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't belabor the issue. This motion is a result of the discussions and feedback that we heard from the public with respect to the rezoning of the school at Hillcrest, or the property at the corner of Hillcrest and Highway 20. It's in some way a response to that. Originally, I had suggested that I would be bringing a motion to create a community safety zone, but with some preliminary discussion through you, Mr. Mayor, to the region of Niagara, they advised that they have had much better luck in establishing school zones with respect to having people being responsive to the flashing yellow lights, and also not having to have as much enforcement in place in order to see the drop in the speed. So in response to that feedback, I changed my mind with respect to the type of zone that would be asked for. I think, if nothing else, it sends a message that our community cares and is responsive to what we've heard from our residents, and that we've taken every effort to try and ensure the safety of our community.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Durley?
Nothing I could say that hasn't already been said.
Okay, thank you. Others? The motion, Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that there will be some, what shall I call it? You want to petition the regional municipality of Niagara to work with the town, but I hope that there's going to be some involvement of the Niagara Regional Police in this, because this section of road is not strictly, the problem exists, and we've heard it from the residents. It exists now with a school not in this vicinity whatsoever. So the hours of 8 to 9:30 in the morning and 3:30 to 5 in the afternoon are not necessarily conducive to what, those are school hours that you're referring to here, and the residents who have the safety issues are certainly not addressing those particular hours, given that there is no school in the vicinity. Furthermore, I would just like to comment on the fact that that area is now a 50. It is not being enforced. And so to think that reducing the speed limit to 40 is going to make any difference to those residents, beg to differ. That being said, I will be supportive of the motion because I'm very concerned of what those citizens have said, but I do feel that this is putting the cart before the horse. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other members of council to the motion? Councillor Riviak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I too want to echo the sentiment that in response to the many statements that were made with regard to the condition of traffic there, and our indication that we had heard that and needed to do something about it, I think this is an excellent indication that, in fact, we have heard that message and are being active, albeit the road, of course, is in the jurisdiction of the region and not our own. I want to ensure, however, that our understanding is that this is only one of a number of things that can be done. The environmental assessment that is going to take place later on this month should be hearing from us as well, I guess, with respect to perhaps other suggestions that can be made around enforcement, certainly, as Councillor King has indicated, but maybe there are some engineering initiatives that can be taken around lanes, additional lanes, turning lanes, other aspects that might also help. I would not want to see that this is the only response that would be made to all those traffic indications that we've heard.
Thank you. Any others? In addition to what's been said, just give you a brief update that I did broach the topic with regional staff and kind of put them on warning after Councillor Kersey gave notice that he wanted to do this at this meeting. regional staff did talk about, at first blush, without having seen this, that you know, they might be interested in putting something about, or recommending flashing lights in those areas, in those two school zone areas. The final thing, I think, is that this is timely for the reasons that Councillor King alluded to and others, but also because the region's budget process is ongoing and sort of ramping up. So I'm hopeful that if some budget is required, perhaps this can be in next year's regional budget, and we can get it done as quickly as possible. There's always a number of signalizations that are done in the region, and hoping with this motion that this can be bumped up in the order of signalizations that are done across the community. So without any other comment, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We do have another motion. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Durley. Whereas the town of Pelham is the most vibrant, creative, and caring community in Niagara, and whereas the internet has become a vital part of the lives of many citizens with respect to work, play, communications, and culture, and whereas the town of Pelham wishes to enhance the ability of our citizens to enjoy the benefits offered by our downtowns of Fenwick and Fonthill, and whereas the council of the town of Pelham believes that enhancing our downtowns will work to strengthen the cultural, business, and heritage aspects of these areas, therefore be it resolved that Council directs staff to investigate the process and costs associated with providing wireless internet service to the downtown cores of Fenwick and Fonthill. The report shall provide information with respect to capital and operational costs, as well as timelines associated with providing this service. This report shall be provided not later than the last meeting in November, such that consideration may be given to Council for inclusion in the 2013 capital and operating budgets. Discussion. Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here again, I won't belabor it. I feel that with the internet being as important in our lives as it is today, and wanting to be a very connected community and wanting to draw people to our downtown cores, that it will be a very useful means in doing that and still providing an excellent service to our citizens who may not be able to afford a wireless connection, be unable to get a wireless connection for technological reasons, and just to help support our business community in general. I did a search on the web. There are many communities that are jumping on this types of initiative, from big communities down to small communities, and all are reporting that it's an excellent a means by which the corporation can support its citizens and provide service to its citizens. So I would ask my colleagues to support this. At least let's get the information, and so we have all of the things that we need to try and make this decision.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Definitely, the internet brings us into the 21st century, and it providing access to wireless internet particularly in the business areas as a first step, and it can be expanded because there are some municipalities in the province of Ontario that have their whole cities under that umbrella. However, this being a baby step in that direction, certainly be a catalyst to bring people back to the downtown, which we're trying to do. We want to make sure that our business community remains viable and self-sufficient. So this is a step that will keep people in the downtown, and certainly if they come to take advantage of the internet services, they could be making purchases and walk into our retail outlets and our service providers in the downtown. So I really feel it's a step in the right direction, and merely a beginning, because certainly we can expand upon this as the need arises and as the monies to fund it become available. So I certainly am in full support of Councillor Kersey's initiative.
Thank you very much. Others? There being no others, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, again unanimously. Thank you very much for bringing it forward, councillors. The next item is the confirming bylaw. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Papp, that leave now be given to introduce the following bylaw and dispense with the reading of the bylaw, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of council at its meeting held on the 17th day of September 2012. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Papp, that the following bylaw have been considered a first time be numbered as follows. Bylaw 3,298 be now considered a second and third time and passed, and the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Finally, it's been moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Papp, that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for Monday, October 1st, 2012 at 6:30, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned.